All right, we're excited for this week's episode of the Midnight Founders Podcast. Today we're going to introduce you to Carlton van Putten and his company Payrent.
Yep.
I think the key takeaway this week is learning from Carlton about how everything in his career path kind of led him to be uniquely qualified to solve the problem that his company is trying to solve right now. And also that, he waited until later in his career to really kind of scratch the entrepreneurial itch. And he always knew that he
30
wanted
years or something, right?
He always knew he wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I think the advice that you can take from that is it's never too late to get started on your idea. So if you have an idea, but you're like, don't know if I want to get started, it's never too late.
Let's do it. Here we go.
Let's get started.
Well, welcome. We're excited to be here at another episode of the Midnight Founders Podcast, sponsored by reupload and CB Vault with Central Bank. I'm AJ Rounds, host of the show, along with my co-host, Jake McHarg. And we're so excited to be here with Carl van Putten with Payrent. And he's got a phenomenal story for us today. We're excited to hear how the company started and some of the things he's working on, challenges, and how he overcame those challenges like the Midnight Founder podcast that like we talk about. So with that, let's get started. Jake, do you want to start us out with a question for Carl?
Yeah. So we kind of started talking about this, but I'd love to know what your background is, how you got into this, and like what started this idea for Payrent.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, just thank you for putting this together.
Yeah.
I love the premise.
Yeah.
The midnight
solving problems, right? We're in the trenches.
Well,
right?
yeah, and just the idea that there is no end or beginning to your day, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is when you're starting something off from scratch. You're thinking about it, kind of obsessed about it. It actually matches my personality a little bit. I'll tell you some of those stories.
I can't see any of that at all. Right?
But we just we just can't turn it off a lot of times.
I know, right?
So,
it's a problem.
Yeah. Talk to my family. Yeah. Sometimes it can
and
be a
they're
problem.
right along with us with this journey, right? That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Sometimes I have to be reminded. So anyway, yeah. So just glad to be here, and I'm really excited to be a part of the portfolio company for reupload. I mean, I think you guys really have something special. You're really doing something that is much needed and unique in the market, and I'm just really proud to be a part of what you guys are doing. So thank you for
welcome. We're
for welcoming me in to do that. So I think, Jake, we want to talk a little bit about my background. So I was asking you before we started whether we can just be completely transparent and tell you all the dirt.
It's us, right, Jake?
Tell you the stories. It's just the three of us, right?
Yeah.
No,
we're an open book, honestly.
Yeah. So, and I am too. And so, sometimes when I would talk about, my backstory or what I've been through, I don't really want to sugarcoat it. I really just want to say, hey, this has been my life, and this has been my experience that I've had thus far, and this is why I'm where I'm at, and this is where I'm going. Mm-hmm. And it's just really important to me to not try to spin things, or tell a story that's not true. So
right.
I'm glad we get a chance to share that all together.
Mm-hmm.
So my background is pretty lengthy. I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I was born in
I've heard of that place.
In LA.
Yeah.
Grew up in a town called Inglewood.
Oh yeah. It's where the stadium is.
It's where
right?
SoFi Stadium is now, and
yeah.
it's so interesting because it's totally been gentrified. Mm-hmm. But to be honest with you, it was not a good place to grow up. It was not a good neighborhood.
It's gone through some evolution, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think the Forum, and the Lakers, and what Magic Johnson did in that area after he retired from the Lakers changed the entire dynamic of that neighborhood. But I would call it a lower middle class neighborhood. Not a terribly safe place to live. There was definitely gang violence around, and it's pretty close to South Central LA, which is was kind of the heart of gangland in Los Angeles at the time when I was growing up. Which was in the 70s and 80s, right?
Not too far off Skid Row and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I grew up in an environment with two great, very dedicated, and loving parents who, until my mom passed away, they'd been married for 50 years, and it was a really safe and encouraging place to grow up and be. But the surrounding environment was not that way. My parents created a place for us that was that way, right?
Nurture versus nature.
Yeah,
Right.
they both grew up very poor. My father is African American. He grew up in Virgin Islands. He was born there. His father was a missionary for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So he grew up in a very impoverished situation, 10 kids to his family. My mom grew up in North Carolina, very much in that sort of sharecropper environment. That was a part of that culture. Both of them were very, very high on education, right? Both of them got PhDs in education. They actually dedicated their whole life and their whole everything they did was around educating. So
That's so cool.
my dad was a principal. My mom was a school psychologist, and they built a very good middle class life for us, with starting with very little, right?
Yeah.
So they put
All the cards stacked against them almost, huh?
Yeah, it really was, and I actually think on my mom's side, she might have been the only one to go to college in her family. I think she was the only one to go to college.
Amazing.
Yeah, my dad went to college, and so did a couple of his brothers and sisters, and they ended up going into the ministry for the church and that sort of thing. But my dad became an educator, so I grew up in a family that really prided themselves on getting a good education, getting a good job. But I can tell you, my exposure to any type of entrepreneurial environment was not there. They were very much play it safe, get a good job.
Traditional.
Very traditional, go to college, do that sort of thing. And so, and I remember talking to my mom and dad about, wanting to do things that might have been a little bit more creative or a little bit more higher risk. And their comment was always, great, go for it and do it. And I don't think they knew it at the time, but they would also say things like, but have something to fall back on, right? This whole idea of, have something to fall back on, go to college, and so you can always have a job or get a job.
Yeah.
That was deeply ingrained into the way I thought about how I would run my life, right? And so I went to undergrad at UCLA, graduated from there, and did some graduate work there as well, and really just started down the path of a job, just having a job. And I was always, as a kid, figuring out a way to make extra money, doing things with paper routes and selling cards door to door, and really being kind of entrepreneurial as a child. But when I graduated from college, I very much set any of that aside and just basically went kind of the job and career route. Got married at a fairly young age and had kids in my 20s, and really just played the job path for the next 30 years. That's kind of what I did. I didn't
clock in, clock out.
Clocking in. Well, clocking in, clocking out. But I actually made a lot of good progress. I mean, I made it into the executive ranks of a publicly held company by the time I was 32, and
wow.
I was very ambitious.
Which company was that?
From a job standpoint, I worked for a company called Focus Enhancements, which they were publicly held.
Very cool.
They were a Mac peripherals company, and I was the VP of marketing at that company at a pretty young age.
Very cool.
And so I was very much self-taught in the business and leadership world, and I was very much a student of leadership, and it really actually sustained me very nicely while I raised my kids and provided a really, I would say, completely risk-averse, risk-free environment for them.
And this
So
was
were you in California the whole time?
I was just going to ask.
I moved all over the place. Yeah. So
okay.
I moved to Silicon Valley and worked at Apple Computer back in the 90s before Steve Jobs came back, when they were kind of lost in the wilderness,
Transitionary point, right? That
yeah.
gaps.
It was a different time. I mean, people revere Apple and love Apple today, but they were really struggling in the 90s with an identity. They were trying to become a PC company and were really being misled by by management at the time. And so, Apple wasn't that great a place to be. It has a great name now, and I'm proud to have been there during the time as a product manager. I learned everything about how to create software products and hardware products. I am a complete technophile. I love technology. I've always loved technology. And so that my time and experience at Apple really just kind of led me down this career path for tech. And so, I've known that that's what I've wanted to do, and that's what I have done for my whole career is build software products.
Cool.
Yeah. So So anyway, I spent 3 decades, almost 26, 27 years or something like that, building products for other companies, and helping both large and medium and even a few startups to transition and grow and build products that customers wanted and scale their business. And then, eventually those companies, I would either move to another company and help them do the same. The last 2 companies that I worked at were payments companies that were also fintech companies.
Okay. I'm seeing all the crossroads come together for Payrent.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. So I've been building software, and then I got involved in payments, and I love the payment space because it's one of those utility products that nobody thinks about, but it's a huge business, and there's a huge opportunity there for creating things that customers really want, and that aren't necessarily out there because of the way banks and regulators have to manage their portfolio of products. There's just room for a ton of innovation, right? And so, I was privileged enough to be a part of a couple companies that were innovating in the payment space, and both of those companies saw some exits. And
PayPal, maybe?
Well, we
Just kidding.
Yeah, we were acquired by a couple of large, payment companies, WorldPay and which is a giant mega payments infrastructure, and First American and some other ones. So, So anyway, that was my journey to this place. But for me personally, I just decided that I was not going to end my working career without stepping onto the entrepreneurial stage.
That step in the darkness, huh?
The step into the darkness, right? Because
you know how that feels, right, Jake?
How has it been?
Well, it's scary. You step to the edge of a cliff, and then you jump off, and then you flap your little wings as hard as you can, and hope that you can fly before you hit the ground.
That's right.
That's kind of what it feels like, right? And it wasn't a risk I was willing to take when I was raising a family, but I certainly embraced that risk at this stage because my kids are out and they're grown. And I really admire people, frankly, that step out earlier and really have that entrepreneurial bug and go and do that. That wasn't my journey at all. I don't think I'm going to be, I'm not going to have a serial entrepreneurial story. I'm going to have this one and maybe one other after this, but that's going to be my journey.
But it sounds like you couldn't go through life without at least trying once or twice.
I have it in my phone. It's like I think it takes a lot of courage to step out on faith, try to create something from nothing and grow something from zero.
Right.
I think it takes a lot of faith. And I just didn't want to have the regret of just not taking that leap and taking that step out to do that.
No regrets.
And what's been awesome, frankly, is just the people that kind of come around you to help you, to lift you up, to be some wind beneath your wings. Let's just think about talking with you, Jake, about what you do to help some of these businesses that are out here to thrive and grow by the things that you're doing. It's really critical to have a crew, a group of people.
That's right.
Kind
of a village.
It feels like you're alone.
Yeah.
But really, I don't think you can be alone and do this.
I don't think anyone listening to this podcast has ever felt alone in any way. They're all
they're up at
right?
midnight on their laptop.
They all know. Exactly.
So, Carlton, tell us a little bit more about, what Payrent is, how it got started, and let's dive into that story.
Yeah. So I have, since the last company I exited, I have been looking for an opportunity to do something in the payment space and do something with software. Because I know those things. I know how to create software products that customers really like. And I know the payments business, the underpinnings of the payments business and how it works and the unit economics and what you need to do to be able to make that successful. And so we kept our eyes open for just opportunities that might come to us, myself and one of the other investors in the business, early investors in the business, who actually happened to be the CEO of the previous company I worked at.
Oh, cool.
We just always said, hey, we like working together. Let's look for something else to do together. So
that means you're good at building relationships and working with people long term.
Yeah, I think, it's like I said, people just amazingly come into your life at the right time and fill out the needs that you have.
Yeah.
That's why when I talk about this whole faith act, this act of faith, it's like stepping out on a leap of faith, is so amazing because you don't know where your step is going to land or when you're going to fly. But, if there's any encouragement I can offer for people that are listening to this and trying to figure out whether this is something that they want to do, they have to believe in providence. They have to believe, I think, in
whatever that means to you, right?
Yes, whatever that means. Just like the universe's organizing power, whatever you want to call it, you have to know that there's something in addition to you that helps things to get created.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how I would have ever met you or any of the other things if I wouldn't have taken that step. And I'm glad I know the people that I know, and I think it's a miracle every day to meet the people that I've met because that's nothing I could have ever figured out or forced an orchestration of, right?
Yeah, and that's a consistent theme that we're hearing from most entrepreneurs that we've interviewed is that you have to take that step before you're ready to take that step, or else you'd never start a business.
You would never start. Because it's never a comfortable thing, right? You're stepping into completely outside of your comfort zone, and that's another driver for me. It's just like I'm just not willing to stay in my comfort zone.
Good for you.
You have to stretch. You have to keep growing. You have to keep learning.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a creative type. So you just have to do it.
Cool. So Payrent, what problem are you solving with Payrent?
So for us, what we saw was that there's a really large population of, I'd say, DIY landlords out there. Guys like you and me, the dentist down the street.
They own a couple of properties, but they're not a lot of them.
They're trying to build some wealth for themselves.
Yeah.
Most of the time, what they really want is to create, truly passive income, cash flowed, properties plus appreciation, right? It's just a great vehicle for growing wealth.
Yeah.
And so it's low enough of a bar so that just about anybody can get into it and get started for relatively
with a little bit of capital,
very little capital. So there's 11 million of those people here in the U.S.
Really?
It's a pretty big number.
That own between 1 and
50 proproperties.
50 properties. Okay.
Yeah,
so that's your sweet spot right there.
11 million people that own about 32 million rental units in the U.S.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know the stats.
Yeah, it's a very large population. They aren't necessarily investing in, I would say, heavy duty property management tools and platforms. They generally don't want to do that
because they're very expensive
and they're very complex.
That's right.
So you have this whole population of people that are trying to keep it simple. They're trying to make this as passive as possible and generate income without
doing it at midnight, right? Managing their properties at midnight,
right? Doing their
midnight founders themselves,
doing their side hustle. That's right. Exactly right. Doing their side hustle. So when we started the business in 2020, those were the people that we wanted to serve.
Okay.
And we started the business in January 2020, and then of course in March of 2020, COVID happens.
We all know what,
and we all know what that felt like.
Remember that day,
right? And the amount of stress and fear and trepidation that disruption in revenue for the landlord, and the stress and fear that happened for so many renters, not by any fault of their own.
Especially because the regulations were siding oftentimes with the renter saying, hey,
for sure,
don't worry about paying your rent payments for X number of months. And that was a tricky time, wasn't it?
It was very tricky. And, the amount of the late rent that was paid, rent that was paid after the due date, or not at all, spiked up to 25% of renters
I believe that.
in April and in May. Now, it retreated pretty quickly, and people got a handle on that disruption. But what it informed us about, and what we heard from customers that we were already in market and getting customers, was that they just want on-time rent. It's like, if you can help my tenant, or if you can help me in any way, shape, or form to make sure that cash keeps flowing so that I can, as an investor, keep making my mortgage payments on these properties, then that would be a huge benefit in the market. And so that was when we started to think, okay, well, can we be that safety net? Can we provide a platform, not just where renters and landlords can just make their regular rent payments, but can we provide a safety net where, if there needs to be some type of a short-term bridge of capital, a loan to the renter or an on-time guarantee to the landlord, that has a very high likelihood of being paid back within weeks, because that was really the nature of the problem. The problem is, there's a 2-week gap, and that 2 weeks is super stressful for everybody. If we can just solve that problem for people, we will have improved the lives of the renter and the financial well-being of the landlord. And so that's really what we chose to focus on as a value proposition. So
the safety net for the renters and the landlord combined, essentially.
Yeah, we just want to end the stress about late and lost rent.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. And there are many ways to do that, and we have some of them in place today, and we're building some of them for the future as well. But it's really just about solving that one thing, solving the problem of late and lost rent for renters and landlords. So,
cool.
So if you have a struggle making rent on the first, and you've got a good payment history, then we'll be able to give you an interest-free short-term loan that you pay back over a 2 or 3 week period, and you can go ahead and pay rent. No late fees. The landlord's not stressed. You're not stressed.
Yeah.
And of course, there's money to be made in that, but there's also relief to provide for the market as well.
With our rental properties, we would give all of our tenants a discount if they paid before the first.
Right.
Because,
It's that critical to get it in.
Well, and I just hated that, like sending that text that said, hey, where's rent?
Right.
It's the 5th, it's due.
Exactly. Or like, if you don't get it in by the 5th and you have a late payment or whatever,
Right.
like I would much rather give away that late payment that the fee that we would have collected for a late payment. I would much rather pay you guys to handle that whole process.
Yeah, and so in fact we built a feature that offers an early discount automatically if you pay before the first, and we're able to automatically levy late fees. But the important things that we're building are 2 things. Number one is that we partnered with a lending partner that is able to just let people borrow up to $500 of cash, with no interest, just a one-time transaction fee, so that they can make rent on time, right? They'll pay it back over that month, but it just helps to alleviate the stress. And that, of course, translates later into, maybe somebody is in a position where they just really would rather pay on the 5th and the 15th because that's how they get paid, right? Gig workers in particular have this issue, right? Their cash flow comes and goes in sporadic amounts, and the number of gig workers that are renters now is nearing 45%. Almost half of people that rent are also gig workers, which means they're not getting paid on a regular basis. They're getting paid sporadically. And so there's
say gig workers.
So people that are working hourly, or people that are
like Uber drivers,
DoorDash drivers,
or the flex economy.
Much more of the flex economy workers,
okay.
and their cash flow is different.
Yeah,
right.
More sporadic.
So there's this growing discrepancy between how a landlord wants to get paid, which is I want my money on the first, and how a renter can pay or wants to pay to help manage their life and their cash flow. So, you can see how we can extend from, this short-term capital, kind of a short-term debt solution that we have today, to build that into, hey, for a small subscription fee, we'll pay your landlord on the 1st, and you can pay on the 5th and the 15th.
Or you pay throughout the month, or whatever
Or you pay
works
weekly.
for you. Yeah.
Whatever works for you as the renter. The landlord doesn't have to change the way they manage their cash flow and manage their business.
Yeah.
The renter can manage their cash flow and their business, and we're the arbitrage between those two, and we can make a decent revenue off of something.
Carlton,
like that.
really, it's kind of a win-win. I mean, there's no downside, really. I mean, there's a little bit of a subscription fee, like you said, right?
Yeah.
But you're not making money on the interest or anything, right? It's just
we're trying to structure this in such a way so that it's not overbearing for people, and it really leverages like I said, the difference between how landlords want to get paid and how renters can pay.
Fantastic.
That's our core.
Love it.
Our core value prop.
Lots of need out there for this.
Yeah.
So Carlton, that's exciting. Payrent. I mean, I'm fortunate to see you in action because of the RevRoad relationship there. But what are you most excited about next? I mean, what's the next big milestone for Payrent?
Figuring out a way to move this concept of eliminating late and lost rent into that space as well. I will say the biggest pain for this is the gentleman landlord, the DIY landlord. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I think as we move into more benefit-driven things for renters, like what we're talking about with a flexible payment schedule, that's something that I believe that you can offer as an amenity to the larger guys as well.
Feature,
I think it's another feature that they can
for sure
offer, and it really is a significant benefit for the renter as well.
Yeah.
So I'm really fascinated in your transition. Having spent your entire career, or a large majority of your career to this point, working as an employee or a director, but not necessarily as the owner or the founder, and making that transition. What's been the biggest difference for you? Yeah. Or, how has that transition been? Question.
Yeah. So, I mean, it probably comes as no surprise that when you step out to do this, you have to have every hat on your hat rack, right?
You stack them up high, right?
You have every hat on, right? Yeah. So, during the rent cycle, I'm on customer service, right? And during product launches, I'm on QA, and I'm selling, I am installing, I've got some really great people on the team that have really helped in this early stage to get things launched. But I think the biggest difference is you really have to be maybe not totally capable, but at least willing to wear every hat.
Well, I think it's just like what you said earlier. You have to be willing to step into the dark, and that sometimes means aspects of your business that you're not great at today, or you don't even know how to do. You're willing to jump on YouTube or whatever and figure out how to do it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things that you were like, oh, I never thought I'd have to do this, or I have no idea how to do this.
Or was this even a thing? How did I even
why is this a thing? Used to be other people did this. Right. One of the interesting areas, because I've always been in sales and marketing, is just in the payments business, there's a whole risk and underwriting component, right? And having to learn that whole world, and frankly, having to put on an entirely different demeanor, right? Because in sales, it's like, just sell, baby. Don't worry about installing. Don't worry about it. Just sell.
Make it sound awesome.
Right?
Close the deal.
But on the risk and underwriting side, it's about delivering. So you have to take off your sell hat and put on your delivery hat, and scold yourself for overselling. But really have to handle and manage that and think about that in the process. So, if anybody's listening to this and they feel like they're having to do every single thing, that's pretty normal.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
It happens with
but
everyone.
I think it makes you better at it, right? If you're in the sales process and the underwriting process, then you're better at it.
I think so too, and you learn all aspects of your business, which you otherwise wouldn't know, and you're going to need that when you do hire people for those positions, right? So there may be a benefit to that.
Yeah, there is for sure. but it calls for a certain amount of sort of obsessing, right? Like you do never feel like you're done for the day, right? Because you do have 2 or 3 jobs, and so if you get done with your selling job by 3:00 in the afternoon, and you still got customer service stuff to do, you got to get that stuff done because you want to keep your customers and you want them to be happy. So you just have to.
The Midnight Founder.
You have to do whatever it takes.
All the way to midnight.
He's doing it.
And beyond.
And beyond, yeah. I mean, I wake up at 4:00 in the morning sometime thinking, oh, man, I forgot to do that, and I had to do that yesterday. You got to get up and go do it.
Yep.
So you just pay the price.
Well, it sounds like, Carlton, that you've had several experiences that make you the Midnight Founder, like what we were talking about, right? Getting up at 4 a.m. thinking, oh, man, I forgot that one thing yesterday. What's the craziest thing that's happened to you in this entrepreneurial journey thus far? Some wild story or something unique?
I wish I would have had time to think about this because I'm not a wild guy, so it's like I don't know if I have any wild stories.
We've had several people that have stayed up all night inventorying their one store or
yeah.
Or showing up at a trade show and they forgot their booth and whatever.
Or the website crashes the day before their launching.
Crashes right
so
at the day
all
of
of that happens. Yeah, all of that happens.
I'll take one of each, sir.
Yeah, exactly. All of the above. D.
I think, a lot of times when you're thinking about the customer-facing side of your business, you're not thinking about the back office or administrative side of your business. And sometimes you can really get caught with your pants down on that. Like you're like, oh, wow, I sold this. I have no idea how I'm supposed to actually manage or deliver this. And so, we actually did a partnership with a company called, can I talk about companies, name companies?
Sure.
A company called QuadPay, which is a really great buy now, pay later company. And they're the ones that actually do our lending.
Even today, huh?
Yeah, even today. And we started doing the lending, and then we realized after we had actually even started the whole program that we actually had no way to automatically disperse the funds back to the landlords, and so we had to
minor detail, right?
Yeah, minor detail. Because we're thinking, oh yeah, the money will just flow back into their merchant account, and yeah, the things.
Oh man!
And then it turned out we couldn't access their merchant account.
That's stressful.
And so we're already live, and we're actually already needing to fund these loans.
I'm feeling your pain right now.
So I'm sitting in the middle of the night, just absolutely feverishly building a back-end administrative tool that taps into the API of our bank and taps into the API of our payment provider to get those funds flowing automatically before it gets too hot and heavy. And once again, if I would have probably known all the stuff that it takes to get that all up and working, I probably wouldn't have pulled the trigger on something. But I'm happy I did because the timing was right.
It forced you to have a deadline.
It forced you to have a deadline, and yes, it was sleepless nights and long hours. It was only a couple of days of stress, 3 days of stress, but you just got to do it. You have to make sure your customers are happy. You got to make sure your customers are happy.
Back to that point of if you had known all of that, you would have waited, and Payrent might not exist today.
It might not.
The middle of 2022,
or we might not have been able to help the people when they needed the help that they needed.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the key. Is we were trying to get this feature done at a time when people needed it most, which was the heart of COVID. We're trying to get this done. So I'm happy that we did it. It was only stress for me, it was only extra work for me. So I don't think anybody that's not listening to this podcast would know that we had to go through that.
Yeah.
But it was super, super stressful.
Your customers are going to be listening like,
what?
They didn't know how to pay us?
I never knew this was all going on.
Well, one of the things that we really want to know, that I think the listeners will really take some value from this, not just hearing your story and your background and being inspired by your leap of faith and kind of the steps that you took to get Payrent off the ground, but what advice do you have for somebody out there that's getting ready to start their leap of faith?
These are things that I'm learning to do. I'm not an expert or good at this at all. So I'm probably talking to myself as much as I'm talking to anybody else.
Great.
Thank goodness, because I don't think any of us are perfect at any of this.
I would say that it's going to be hard. And, bringing a product into the world, bringing a product to market, the market is tough. Every market's tough.
Mm-hmm.
But you get, and in the beginning, when you're getting that flywheel going, it feels like nothing's happening. But I would just say be gentle with yourself. Specifically, be gentle with yourself. Because I think most people that will step out to do this entrepreneurial thing are fairly driven people that are, I would say, are type A.
Hypercritical.
Hypercritical, probably of themselves. And it's boded them well throughout their lives to push themselves.
Yeah.
And to
be self-aware and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but it's more than self-awareness, because I actually think self-awareness shows a certain amount of emotional intelligence, and I think you can, if you're really self-aware, you already know how to be gentle with yourself. But I think a lot of people that are driven and goal-oriented oftentimes will try to get to their goal by, beating about the head and neck, right? The beatings will continue until morale improves.
We've all seen that post.
And so you beat yourself up a lot, I think, when things don't go exactly to plan.
I don't know if we've heard that one before. That's a good point.
Yeah. And I would just say, be gentle with yourself. Be graceful with yourself. The job of an entrepreneur and bringing a product to market is already hard enough without you adding to your own self-critical, nature, if that's the type of person that you are. And,
well said.
And I would bet that people that are stepping out to do this are very self-critical. Maybe I'm just projecting, because I tend to be very critical of myself. I want to do everything perfect. I want to execute.
I think you're right on.
Right on time.
I think that's
and
a thing.
Nothing ever goes wrong, and there's no failure. I'm going to tell you, there's more failure than success. Mm-hmm. There's more missing the goal than hitting the goal. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you can survive that if you can't learn to be gentle with yourself and kinder to yourself. So that's
fantastic.
That's the advice I would give to people is kindness and gentleness.
That's fantastic.
It doesn't mean you're not trying to get to where you're trying to get to. It doesn't mean that at all.
You're not dropping the benchmarks or the goals. You're just being gentle with yourself.
No, you're figuring out. I mean, how would you talk to your child that is trying to accomplish something, right? Yeah. Would you really beat the crap out of them? No, you would be encouraging, and you would be helpful, and you would be kind, and you would be loving, and you would be gentle. And so you have to remember to do that for yourself.
Well, Carlton, we need to wrap up here, but we've already asked the question, what makes you a midnight founder? And you've kind of told us about that, some of the things that you think about at night. Everyone has someone to look up to and to be inspired from. Who is that person for you, Carlton?
I would say, personally known people, the guys that I'm invested with in the business that helped me to get this business off the ground, I have tremendous admiration for. My friend Jeff Shea, who was the CEO at Payline when I was there, hired me on to be their chief revenue officer and help to scale the business. And he's just an incredible human being. I aspire to be like him, even though he's old enough to be I'm old enough to be his dad. Mm-hmm. He's like in his early 30s.
Age doesn't matter, right?
Super successful entrepreneur already. I just
great.
really admire that. But it's actually his humility and his patience and his care for others that I actually admire most. And yet he is also very successful and has been very successful even at an early age in business. So if he ever listens to this podcast, I'm just saying, Jeff, I love you and thank you for believing in me and stepping out on faith with me.
That's cool. And he will. Shout out to Jeff Shea.
And then people I don't know that I greatly admire, and it was actually the reason why I got into tech in the first place. Steve Jobs inspired me very early in my life. When he created the Mac, I was actually a teacher in in Los Angeles.
Interesting.
I fell in love with the Mac, and I fell in love with computers, and I learned how to
The
create
box, right? The
that
box
little
with the
Mac
screen
with the
and-
little
right,
8-inch screen,
I
man.
remember,
It was
yes.
the best thing I'd ever seen in my
The
life.
mouse with the cord. And
Yes, it was magical. It was magical.
I remember those days.
Because I could do music on it. I could
Yeah.
do my grades on it. I actually created a database for the school that I worked
The
at.
little
on
drive
it.
was just right there under the monitor.
You're flipping out,
That's right.
floppy drive.
Yeah,
Floppy drives.
that's right.
So anyway, it was. He inspires me because he reminds me that things don't exist until people create them, and nobody can picture what's going to be created except for the creator. And it's amazing to me because if you look around the world, nothing existed until somebody figured out how to create it.
Yeah,
Didn't exist.
good point.
And then here it is. And, here's a guy that reinvented, the music business, the computer business, the phone business. And no one would have ever envisioned the things that he envisioned until he created them and brought them into life. So that just reminds me that we are co-creators. We're creating things that don't exist out of nothing, out of the ether. And with the idea that we want to benefit, society, benefit mankind, and do things that help others. So, that's my personal story about guys that
Love it.
I really admire.
Love that.
I love it. This has been fun to get to know you a little bit better,
Yeah.
get to understand what Payrent's doing. How do the listeners find Payrent? Are you on social media?
Yeah. So it's payrent.com is our website.
Okay.
If you're a landlord and you're sick of trying to collect checks and you're sick of trying to send that text to say, where's rent? We can take over all of that for you and simplify it for you. 5 minutes, you're set up with a merchant account. You're ready to take both, bank transfers and credit cards right off the bat. Super simple to use. You'll find us at payrent.com. And, you can even join for free and just sort of pay as you go. So a very easy product to buy and a very easy product to use. And hopefully we are in a position to provide you with great customer service and really truly make your landlording experience a passive income experience, which is what everybody really wants.
Payrent's going to take over the world. Love it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Guys.
Carlton.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.